Hey, Sue.
Hi.
So I had an application show up in my door like a little while
Yeah,
ago.
I know. I know. Yeah,
Oh, well,
I know.
it's, I saw after I got this, my husband got it from the doorway, brought it up to me, and I opened it up and I took pictures of it and I sent it to Tom. And then I saw his message, his communication with Ann. So he was aware, but it
Yeah.
does sound like it's just a like for like anyway.
Pretty much, not totally.
But she didn't provide any details to know how close. She just said it was essentially.
Yeah, and it's happening whether we approve it or not.
Well, so it seems.
Yeah.
Well,
I have a question for you.
uh-huh.
Is the Zoom link a recurring link so
Yes.
that, okay, well that, yeah, somewhere along the line, because I called Pat, I said, do you have it and what date?
It's
And
the
she
same
said,
one.
no,
Yeah.
I don't. And then when you said I'll resend it to everyone, I thought, okay.
And I usually do, but yes, Ariana has it set up as a recurring meeting. So
Okay, well,
same one every time.
that's my fault and Pat's fault. We're not computer savvy enough to.
Okay, no problem.
I
Why
went,
make it any more complicated than it should be, right?
well, we're getting there. We're getting there. But
and I'm just
at least I am
from
anyway.
Pat. Oh, she wants to watch on YouTube. Oh, come on. Can you see my screen?
I can see the agenda. Yep.
Okay. I put this up for you. You'll see it in a second.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we'll even need it, but I kept it just in case.
Yeah. Well, I figured it was just, I know it's like for like, but I wanted to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good for you. All right.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Steve.
Hi,
Hi.
Steve.
Hi, Val. How's everyone?
Fine, thanks. How are you? How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good, good. Val, how are you?
Hanging in. This always gets me a little bit crazy because there's a couple of different things going on at the same time.
I would love to hear maybe from Bill that there's some thought of in-person meetings. I'm so zoomed out
That would be a great thing.
when you think of
Yeah.
the simplicity of face-to-face meetings.
There are
Steve,
people on the commission that I've never even met, so
I know.
I'd love to have a meeting.
That's right.
Wouldn't it be nice to have a face-to-face? How are things at the library, Steve? What are your protocols now?
Well, the more research that comes out shows that it's not really transmitted by book covers, so we've stopped quarantining. We're opening, we're open again now, and then on May 8th, we return to Saturday hours, and then the following week, we extend our evening hours on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we're letting, we used to restrict the number of people who came into the building to 20, so that's staff plus patrons equal 20. Now we're okay with whoever comes in. It's not onerous on us. And we also had the stay. We had a 30-minute limit for people to stay, and we've relaxed that as well. So it's slowly getting back to normal, and everybody's had their, on my staff, it's a small staff, but only one person has had but one shot. So we're getting there. And actually today is day 14 for me after my second shot. So my wife and I are fully.
Congratulations.
Fully set.
Now it feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah.
So we went out to dinner at Twin Star Orchards last night with some friends, and even sitting outside, it's just like, oh my, this is so nice.
Yeah, right, indeed. Oh, we're Marinella and I are 4 days away from our 14th day, and just can't wait for exactly those reasons. Gosh.
Tom, Pat emailed me for the YouTube link, so she may be joining us that way.
Okay. That means I should probably watch my phone for her votes.
Or I'll watch the chat.
Or watch the chat, sure. Yeah. Sue, you have a beautiful cat.
Two brothers that are almost identical, and they're very spoiled.
I can imagine, yes.
That's
Very-
the only way to have
Very
cats.
elegant, though.
To be spoiled.
How pretty. Oh,
Beautiful.
Nice.
Is that a tiger or is that a domestic cat?
yeah.
He and all his appendages are actual domestic short-haired cat.
Oh,
Beautiful,
so
beautiful.
pretty.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I see. He's got company too.
Oh no, that's him. That's just
That's
one. Just one. He
Really?
was here, and then he just decided to parade around a little bit. And
The shadows make him look black.
He's all gray and brown, mostly gray and black, little brown.
Oh, congrats. Yeah, now I can see. But in that particular spot, he absolutely looks black.
Hi, Camilla.
Hi, Sue. Hi,
Top
everybody.
of your
Camilla.
head.
No.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
perfectly. Perfectly. Camilla, good evening to you. Hope everything's okay.
Good evening, Stephen. Good evening, Val.
Hi there, Camilla.
Hi.
So we're not really, I guess we're just going on 7. Valerie, how are you for starting?
All good. We got YouTube up and running.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is let's go live, everybody, and I'll just invite Pat to give a sign to show that she's hearing us. I'd like to declare open the meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission of the Village of New Paltz, meeting April 19th, 2021, 1 minute past 7 p.m. So again, thanks everybody for joining. Pat, if you are hearing us, could you either send me a text or send Val a text or send up a chat, just so we know whether to record your presence at this time. And I hope that we'll see Bill later this meeting. And I really would love to hear that maybe some plans are in place for even outdoor in-person meetings. If I never have another Zoom call in my life, I think I'll be okay. I take that to my grave. Let's wait and see if we hear from Pat. But I think in the meantime, let's give our attention to the minutes. As usual, I've been through them. But does anybody see anything that needs to be amended?
I didn't.
I didn't see any.
No.
I did not.
Okay. How about a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay.
I
And
second.
Pat is hearing us. That's great. Pat, you could text me if you had any corrections or amendments. Yes, Steve.
I just got an email, or we all did, from Bill saying he's unable to attend. He has fire training this evening. Sorry for the late notice.
Okay. All right. So we won't be hearing anything about that. I think Camilla moved and Sue seconded
Yeah.
approval of the minutes as written. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we'll just wait to see if Pat concurs with that. I think Pat's no is no problems with. I take that to mean no. Just give it a second. I think YouTube is also on a slight delay compared to Zoom. So,
It is, yes.
let's take that as assumed, and if I'm wrong, we'll revisit it.
Sure.
So it looks like we will not have a report from Bill. I'm thinking we could squeeze in a few things. Yes, Pat approved. So Val, that's unanimous, 5-0.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you for, again, perfect minutes. Val, do you mind scrolling down? I thought we might be able to just squeeze in a couple of business items
Let me
before.
go back to the agenda. Let's see.
Yeah. I think that we won't be hearing from Bill, but I will follow up with him. Steve, this would concern you in particular. I think we would really like to hear where we are with the Oliver House. And I would also like to hear if our budget was approved. Sue, you don't know anything as a resident about the one-way Huguenot proposal?
It's been closed. No,
Closed.
it's
Without action taken, yes.
Okay. So is that what that meant, Val?
Yeah,
No-
yeah. Sorry if that was confusing.
Okay. Well, then that's great. It needn't appear on another agenda. Sue, are you personally okay with that, or?
Yeah, I am. You know, you can't try to do something if, half the if the neighborhood is not all in favor of it. It's
Right.
not gonna, that just doesn't make for a good neighborhood.
No, I would agree. Okay. Steve, whatever I find out from Bill, I'll certainly let you know if we're anywhere further along with the Oliver House.
Okay. I haven't seen anything about, bids opening or anything since that one person expressed curiosity, but I definitely am interested in finding out.
Yep, agreed. Okay, Camilla, would you like to report on the art show and the web archives?
But I don't really have anything new to report. I will put up the flyers maybe a month before the deadline. Usually if the flyers go out too early, they are just taken down, and then people forget it by the time it's relevant. So we still have time for that. And I think we can have a second press release very soon to be put in the paper, just as a reminder. And I don't really have anything new to report on the web archives at this time.
Okay. When, Camilla, would you consider optimal for that press release?
I think as soon as possible. I will send something to Val, something very similar what we had last year. and
I
then
think so.
whenever it's convenient for the paper.
If I have it by Sunday, Camilla, we can get it in next week's paper.
Okay, that sounds good. I can get it to you this week, probably
Thank you.
tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
That sounds great. For safety's sake, I'll put end of the week, but that'll get it in the paper next week and not right on the cusp of the event. And no report on anything new on the archives, right? It's really
No, I don't have anything new on that.
okay. Good.
But we had a few submissions already for the art show, so I'm
Good.
happy to say.
And were you able to connect with John about those lingering pieces?
Not yet. I emailed him, but I haven't heard back. I have a feeling of which pieces they are, and I know that we tried to contact the artists, but to no avail.
To no avail.
That was
Well,
last year, and there is one artwork that has been in the library for, I think, maybe 3 years now, and
Camilla,
the
do
contact
we?
information does not work anymore for the.
Do you know offhand when the artists sign the release, is there any language about some expiration that would protect us from donating?
I don't think so. That's not something we really thought about at the time. So maybe we can amend.
I think on the basis of this news, everybody, what happened is John Giralco just kind of got me by the elbow when I was going to the historic collection, and he said, there are these two pieces, would you take them home? I said, I really don't have my car and I can't today. And I suggested that Camilla could meet with him and get them. But I think we probably should add language in future. It's really just an agreement, right? Or a release form.
Yes.
That,
And it says that neither the library nor the HPC is responsible for any damage or any
yeah.
thing that would happen to the artwork. And usually
So
we
we're
say
probably
that
covered on that, but
I'm sorry.
yeah. Maybe we should just tighten up what the expectation is for collecting and indemnify ourselves a little bit if, you know, in a case like this, we've tried and tried. I don't know what we do with them. We probably donate them.
Yeah, or I don't know. Or just, I can keep them for a while longer, I'm sure, and just try. But one person only gave an email address, and that didn't work at all, or a phone number sometimes, and
Yeah.
it's disconnected or not in use anymore. So.
Well, Camilla, if you want to send me the current language, I'd be glad to wordsmith it a little bit and just get that in. Okay, let's move on to one other item. We're still a little bit early. Mr. Liebold, I think you're already on the call.
He's muted.
Mic off.
Okay, we'll get there, but I wanted to acknowledge that you're there and thank you for coming. Sue, we've got a couple of things on Huguenot Street.
Thank you.
Oh, there you are. Welcome. We'll be with you probably on time. We're going to stick to the agenda that would actually have you at about 7:45 tonight.
My apologies. My son and Andy Willingham will be on. Is this a public meeting or should I jump off?
You're most welcome to stay on the call. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I was just had some time, figured I'd listen in.
I'm glad you are. We don't get a lot of audience. We're not exactly great TV, but please.
Well, you know, I do this in Gardner, so it's just curious to see how the village goes with the Zoom call. So
absolutely, sure.
Thank
welcome.
you. Yep, welcome.
And Susan has joined us, Tom.
Yes. So Sue Wynn, let's hold off and let's go to Sue. How are you?
I'm okay. I have to apologize for last month, which like all of a sudden company came in, which, you know, this was a new occurrence. I forgot what it was like to have company. my daughter showed up for dinner, so I missed our meeting date. So I do apologize for that.
Don't worry.
But I'm having a dilemma, and I just want to put it out to all of you to here, let me just to help me with this, if you can. I've been trying to, we're in the late stages of getting our virtual exhibit up about the Amy Zion Church. We've researched some of the people. We've researched kind of what happened and how the church collapsed. And I was all set with where I thought the location was. And I spoke to Carol Johnson. I actually got to go in a couple of weeks ago. And she said that, why can't I think of his name now? Before he died, I'll think of his name in a minute. Wendell Harp, I think it was.
Okay.
Showed her the spot where the church was. And she said the 1875 Beers Atlas was off. And the house was really on the corner. I said, yeah, because that doesn't jive at all. Because I was thinking it was closer where that frat house is, where the parking area was, would go along with where it was on the map. But she said that he showed her on the corner was where it was. So I want to try and go, to the Pomeroy Foundation for a marker, but I can't, I don't know where it was. So just wondering if anyone wants to kind of help me with this a little bit. And because I haven't found that many places on the 1875 map that were not accurate with the locations, but Carol said it's off. And Carol's pretty good,
She's
Carol.
good.
Yeah. And I rarely find Carol wrong with anything, in terms of historical stuff. And she said he showed her, and it was really just about on the corner where there was something there. Now, again, according to the dimensions, I'm looking at my garage right now, and it was probably about the size of my 2-car garage outside. It was not a big building. It was small. We have the dimensions because it was on some of the newspaper clippings. But I'm just curious, I think it really played such a big role in in this town, especially for people of color from 1871 till the early 1910s or so. And I really would like to find the spot where it was so I can put up a marker there. So I'm putting it out to all of you and hoping that maybe you'll want to help me locate it and see if there's any other, things. I thought, I might call Neil Larson up too and see if he might be able to help me a little bit. Any ideas?
How do you think you would go about demonstrating that Carol reported that the 1875 map location is wrong, but didn't necessarily have more to report than what Wendell Harp told her, right? He pointed to the corner.
Right. And I know his sister, Della, we have an oral history from her that when she was a little girl, and they did go to that church. When she was a little girl, Della Shaw, who was originally a harp, that a minister was up speaking, and while he was talking and lifting his arms up to the heavens, the roof fell in. And she said she got hurt. The whole roof collapsed of the building. And she said, well, she didn't mind because her braids had to be cut off or something, but we have a little oral history of her telling about that. So I know they went to that church. I have tried every which way to find somebody in this community that either their parents went there, because even though it was predominantly a church for people of color, there were other people that did, infrequently or frequently go to that church. The Church of Nazarene, I've been talking to the secretary there, Nate Rosenberger, Carol Rosenberger, and she said, because I know it was used after the AME Zion Church was dissolved, that the Church of Nazarene was using that facility for their services. And she said, yeah, it became like it was a Modena or Platical area came up here. They used it, but then they went off to Kingston used Kingston, and then they came back and then they built the place now. So there's the people that have any memory will know when it was in Kingston, not from when it was here, like in the 1930s. So, because that's been 1920s, 1930s, I think it was used for the Nazarene. And it wasn't torn down till, you know, I'm not looking at my paperwork, but you would think somebody in this community would remember where it was, you know, that might still be alive. So just putting it out to you, it's just a dilemma I have. And hopefully, you know, my biggest thing with our exhibit is my front page image, because I have no image of the church. I don't know exactly the spot where it's located on. I don't want to put a church image up because I don't want people to think it's a religious exhibit, because it's not. It's about the community that formed that, and also why the community wanted to build an AME Zion church. Why, you know, they weren't really accepted in the Methodist Church, even though the people at the Methodist Church claimed that they did accept them. There was one person of color that was in that church, and that was Fulton Cox. And he was a member of the Methodist Church and a member of the Zion Church, and they threw him out of the Zion Church because he went to the other Methodist Church. He's the man whose house is still there across the street. That brown house that's looks pretty funky on Pencil Hill, that was Fulton Cox's house. So I
have only one idea, Susan, which you may have already tried. We do have a Facebook account. We could put out an appeal just to the community and hope that it gets picked up by other Facebook groups, and just kind of get the word out that we're looking for somebody with direct memories or knowledge.
That would be great. That would be great to do that. And, you know, I thought of maybe even seeing if the paper, well, I know when the exhibit goes up, I'm going to get a press release in the paper. So, but I just, you know, would like to get that before then, you know, because I have to look at the deadline, because I missed the deadline last year for the Pomeroy grant. And it's a shame to have to wait another year for it, but I can't say, well, I think it's either here, kind of like what we did on Huguenot Street, where we said the African-American burial ground was near this site. Yeah. You know, I could try for something like that, but I'd really rather, you know. And then I also need to find out who owns all that property, because it's what is it called? An LTD, an
LCC.
An LCC.
LLC, excuse me.
LLC. It's an LLC. So I'd like to find out who owns that, because they might own the corner as well.
What is the address, Susan?
Well, we're on Pencil Hill on the left side. It's the whole left side of the street there before you get to the turn that goes to the apartments.
Yeah. Okay, but that whole property is owned by the LLC?
I think so.
Okay.
They definitely own the house. It's a student housing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know if they own the corner as well.
Okay.
The parcel viewer should tell us, you know, definitely the owner, but it should have a street address too. Doesn't tell you.
I think it says 1 Pencil Hill or something, or 3 Pencil Hill. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't want to take up any more of your time, but maybe we can talk more. Maybe we can put it on for next month, and if there's time to leave a few minutes, and we can have more discussion and see if anyone can think of something. If you put it on Facebook and, you know, just start thinking about it, and people might want to drive by or look at it.
Yeah. Camilla, are you willing to do that?
Sure, yes. Definitely.
Okay, so maybe just to make sure we get our facts completely right, could you liaise with Susan just to kind of get the wording of how that would look? And we're just basically soliciting people who might have memories or information. Susan, that sounds fine. Why don't we plan to talk again next month?
Okay, that would be great. And just good night to all of you, and hopefully we'll find someone, because I think, again, it's an important landmark in our village, and we definitely want to have it on places to go or visit or look at, you know, when we do something, you know. So anyway, have a good meeting. Okay. Thank you for
so much,
having
Susan.
me. Okay,
Have a good
sure.
evening.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thanks. Mon, good evening.
Hello, Tom. How are you?
Fine, thanks. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's been a long while, huh?
Oh, well, it's always nicer in person, but there you are on Zoom. Thank you. I think everybody's familiar with the application at 162 Huguenot Street for a section of fence. It's a 16-foot privacy fence designed basically to correct a problem where just nothing has grown, right, Mon?
That is correct. We've tried for several years. And in fact, Patrick O'Donnell has tried as well. And nothing seems to grow in that particular spot. And it's kind of adjacent to where my brother and sister-in-law and their family would sit and lay out at the pool. And you have a clear view of Patrick's house. And they'd just like to to block that to some extent.
Yeah. I suspect it's mutual, right? Nobody really likes looking at the neighbor's pool on a hot day. Okay. Does anybody have a basic question about the application? And Pat, that would include you. If you have any question, you can just text it on over. Steve, Sue, Camilla, anything you want just re-explained?
No, I think it's clear.
Yeah, it
What's
makes
proposed.
Did everybody get a chance to do a site visit
Yes.
and take a look at it? I know
Yeah.
Val did.
I did.
Good.
And yeah. I'm inclined to say that this is very, very low impact, and we have your report that Patrick and Ginny are in favor of it. So I'm inclined to make a decision tonight. I don't think this rises to the level of public hearing. I just don't think there's an impact.
I might add, Tom, that when you're back in the area that's depicted on the screen right now, even during the leaves down that we're experiencing right now, you can barely see Huguenot Street.
Yeah. No, that's right. And that's confirmed by Val's photo as well.
Good.
Yeah, I haven't shown those yet, but I can. And I know others took walk-bys, so may want to weigh in here.
Yeah, if anybody wants to weigh in, please do.
I have no objections to it.
No.
No, I think it's a good idea. Are they locust trees or black walnut trees, I mean?
They are not black walnuts. There are several black walnuts on the property, but they're more to the south side.
Yeah.
But they're still behind the house.
Yeah.
There's the one that's I want to point to the stake, by the stake with the surveyor's tape on it. In the foreground is an oak tree.
Uh-huh.
And even as dense as that gets, I've cut a lot of the lower branches that were dead for years off, so they could actually put their chairs and lounges on the patio by the pool.
The only reason I asked is because plants don't tend to grow under black walnuts.
That is correct.
So
Yeah.
I just thought maybe that was the problem.
I know I had initially, when I was communicating with Val, talked about a second location that was on the southerly side of the property, along the property line. And the gardener said, gee, you can't plant anything there. I've been trying for years and haven't been able to plant anything there that would grow. And it is under a black walnut tree.
Yeah, they're awful for.
They're tough.
Yep.
Almost impossible. Val, could you please scroll to the image of the fence?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to reorient it again, so
Yep.
sit tight.
Round and round we go. This Mon strikes me as a really good product. I think I actually know, was this from Adams?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I've actually had this brochure in my hands as well. That's a good product.
It's actually a similar fence, and I believe that their neighbors on the south side have put up panels similar to that.
Yeah, I'll show you in a sec, because I took a picture of it right there.
Okay, yep.
Yep. Right. So it looks very much in the idiom of, what's been done in the neighborhood.
What we tried for.
If you could get that wavy effect, that would be a whole nice thing. Eventually it'll come.
A few years, yes, it'll work.
But no, it's a good product, and Cedar will give you many, many years. Does anybody feel like you have a question or an observation? Motion to approve?
I move that HPC 2102 be approved.
I second.
Okay.
Great.
Moved by Steve and seconded by Camilla. Any further discussion before we vote?
It's a really good looking fence. I like it a lot.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Let's have a vote then. All those in favor?
Hi.
Okay, let's just wait to see if Pat's vote comes in. Mon, we've got one member who's on YouTube and texting responses back, so there's a little bit of a lag. But it's going to pass either 5-0 or 4-1. And we'll look forward to seeing that realized. Are you going to? It's 5-0 unanimous. Thank you, Pat. Thanks very much. Are you going to get right on it?
It's my understanding that Adams Fence Company is booked for the short term. So I don't have any idea when it will take place, but we certainly wanted to go through all the motions.
Well, motions are done. Val will communicate this to the building department tonight and copy you. So I think you really are free to make an appointment with Adams.
Good. Yeah, I asked my sister-in-law to hold off until we got to this stage.
Okay.
So she can go ahead. On another note, we have not started the shed, which you all approved last year. We haven't started it yet. And we understand, do we have a year until that?
A year to start the work, yes.
Yeah, work has to commence. And we're prepared to be flex. I mean, please let us know if it looks like it's going to take a whole other year. But with COVID, we've had to do this with other applicants.
Well, I'm not sure whether it was COVID, but I know that the builder has been overwhelmed with doing things. And this is not a big project for what he normally does. So
Got it.
It's been side shuffled a bit.
Why don't we do this just as a proactive thing? We can make a note, let's say, on the August agenda. Oh, sorry, we typically don't meet in August. Why don't we make it let's say the September agenda. We'll just reach out to you in August or September to see where things are.
Okay, I think it was a September approval. I may be incorrect.
I'll double check the approval date so we can take it from there.
Yeah, actually, Val, why don't we say, why don't we go 18 months from approval, and that'll just be a check-in that would give you enough time to let us know if you need an extension.
Okay. All right, I'll be in touch. When I do the message about the approval tonight, Mon, I'll look that up in the meantime and include it in that message.
Oh, okay, great. And will that also be forwarded to the building department?
Yeah, that message is going to the building department, copied to you.
Okay, great.
Great.
All good.
All right. Well, good luck with that and every project.
Thanks very much. I appreciate the commission's help with this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Happy to
much.
do it. Thanks for the good application.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Right. Everyone, it is about 7:30. Andy, are you on the call now?
Yes.
Sure looks like you are. And Mario, are you part of this agenda item?
Yes, sir. Probably just listening in though.
Okay, great. And Mr. Liebolt is on the call as well. If you'd like, we can accelerate things a little bit if you're all here.
Sure.
Okay, terrific. And I think maybe I missed someone. Keith, are you part of this application?
Yes. How are we doing today?
Yeah, welcome. With Zoom, it's just so hard to know who's who and why people are in, but welcome to everybody. Andy, would you like to just introduce the project a little bit so that they're hearing it from your own voice, and then we can go into the application, or we can follow along?
Sure.
And Andy, tell me if you'd like me to put up your image or look at the photographic images first.
You can put up the image of the drawing, the Mannheim before there.
There you go.
So I'm Andy Willingham Engineering. Keith Leibolt is one of the owners. Mario is the architect for the project with AJ Coppola and Associates. And the proposed project is about 3 acres. It's 3 parcels totaling 3 acres. It's just north of the Ridge Apartments there and south of Orchard Lane, right across from the college. And the plan is it's zoned for 33 senior apartments, mostly 1-bedroom and a few 2-bedroom apartments. And we've done a few different layouts. This one you're looking at now is kind of the latest and greatest, the one we prefer kind of at the moment here. It's a 60-foot by 285-foot building. It's got a community center in it for the seniors, 2-story. We're gonna have some gardens on the property, lots of open space for the residents. And you know, the big reason why, a couple of reasons why we're here. We're really early on. We haven't gone to the planning board at all yet. We're about to go to them for a conceptual review. We want to just get kind of the initial feedback from this board on 2 things. Really, the preservation of, you know, the value and preservation of the existing house that's on there now, and also some ideas on what, you know, thoughts on what this should look like, this new building, kind of and fitting with that area. So we're really just trying to get ahead of it and get the board's input early on instead of later.
That's terrific. And Andy, thanks. We're so grateful when people do it this way. And I think it usually helps the clients as well, rather than going into loops. Great. Does anybody feel like you have a basic question about what you're looking at? I hope everybody was able to do a walk by. Val, you might want to just go back to the photo for a half second if you could.
I have the historic photo as well here.
Yeah, that might be good to get to at one point.
Okay, well, I'll leave it here for now.
Thanks. And maybe let's go to the historic photo where you'll see that, you know, the major change is that at some point its porch was filled in and it looks like it lost most of its side porch, or it got filled in, I'm not sure which.
What kind of siding are we looking at there? It's hard to say.
I think it was shake.
Yeah.
Or shingle. I think I'm seeing enough. You know, I didn't think to look in its current iteration. It is mostly cedar shingle, I think. Val, would you mind going back to the any possibility of zooming? That's my recollection that it's,
This is the shack.
yeah, with possibly clapboard above, but I think that's my recollection. Andy, I don't know if you're,
I thought it was clabbered, but I don't remember for sure.
I've also got, actually, I have that photo. I think I might have taken this one. I might be able to zoom in on my pad later, but
I can go bigger if you need me to.
yeah, we're probably going to lose detail.
Yeah.
But I think I'm seeing, I think I recollect cedar, but that's probably a pretty small point in the questions that you're asking, Andy. Let's go back to the site plan, if we could. So in terms of location, one of the observations I would make, and I guess I'm partly answering your two questions, Andy, from my point of view, this is transitional space. To the north, it's single family residential. To the south, it's an apartment complex. And to the west, it's the science complex of SUNY New Paltz. So I'm sure you've already thought about this, but that I don't know that it's tricky, but it's particular that there's a kind of transitional quality to where the current house is, and we can talk about that, I think. The other observation I would make is that certainly I recognize that senior housing is and should be a priority. I mean, I think of that as a positive community good. Its location next to SUNY New Paltz, I think, is a wonderful, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but it ends up being a wonderful coincidence because anybody in the community can get a library card at the library. There are events, theatrical events, art events, sporting events right across the street. So, that seems like a community positive to me, and I'm speaking only for myself at this point. So, I think that's a really positive thing. I'm looking at landscaping that seems thoughtful. So I would put all those on the positive side, and just ask my colleagues if anybody wants to add to that or raise other concerns or considerations.
It's a bit difficult to see on the drawing whether the original building, the brown house that we just looked at, would it be incorporated in the project in some way? It would be a shame to lose that building. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way.
Yeah, so this current layout here, you could see the existing building just below on the left of the main building. It's proposed to be removed in this layout, and that is the preference for the owner. And Keith can talk a little bit more about it. But the building it's a lot of little rooms, and I guess Keith is having some issues trying to determine how to make that really a usable place for seniors, and also the location of the building. If we do preserve it, it really changes the entire layout. Really, you almost want to just leave that in the front and then do a larger building in the back. It's a little tricky to try and keep it for us.
Sue and Steve?
I guess my, initial reaction would be the same as Camilla's of, it's kind of hard to, see a building like that go. I'm wondering if there's some way it could be used as, office space or, or something for the staff. rather than the seniors itself, I don't know, but I understand the dilemma. I get it.
Steve, how about you?
No questions at this moment.
I think I'll just second what Sue said. I think I do understand. I actually had a conversation with Andy a couple of weeks ago, and we walked the property and talked about this very dilemma that, you know, from an efficiency point of view, I'm sure that the house really doesn't help the project at all. We are the Historic Preservation Commission, and so that's kind of the lens that we're expected to look through. And so I'm with Sue in thinking that as much as I am in favor of a facility like this, and who knows, may end up there myself one day, you know, I'd like it to be nice for that altruistic reason, but also that selfish possibility. But I think it would be good to have a conversation about how much of a problem the existing house creates. I should let everybody know that there was not a lot on this house. I expected a lot better results down at the historic collection. And really what I got out of it was the historic photo that you saw with the intact porch. I learned that it was built in 1936, and that's really all I got out of the library. And then I did some asking around and found out that at one point the Campus Auxiliary Services owned it up until, I believe, 1985, at which point it was sold. And I think, you know, we can probably safely say that for at least 50 years, it has not been a single family dwelling. It's been various forms of offices. So, you know, in fairness, I don't think it's a building with a rich history to it. It is, however, a pretty distinctive building, especially in that early iteration when that porch was intact. So I think I feel definitely some dilemma here about moving too quickly to destroy the house. But I also think it'd be great to hear from you, Keith, if you want to share what your thinking was and what your own sensitivity to that problem is or isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I can share some brief thoughts. So just as some background that I'm sure all of you may appreciate, my entire career in construction has been with NPS and SHPO. I do a lot of historic renovation work. We primarily in old mill buildings, where we'll take an old mill factory, and I actually have a lot of fun in those and saving some of the historic machine workings and old ways they used to vent the building and incorporate them into some apartments. So I very much so appreciate trying to do your best to salvage what's already been built. In this situation, it's difficult, as you can see it overlay the site, what it does from a site perspective, to the codes, the positioning of the building, and the traffic flow. The lot in a shape of a rectangle is limiting in its width, but not its length. And then unfortunately, as you guys can see in the topo, it drops off. So finding a way to flow the traffic in the property space with this new structure, and that has been very challenging for Andy and I. So it was actually Andy's idea to come before you guys immediately, which I thought I agreed with, because it, in a pragmatic sense, it does make most sense to remove the structure. If that were to be the course of action, you know, it's not, I just want the board to know, in my, as far as from me professionally and the company that I'm part of, this is actually like my specialty. And if I could make use of this structure, it makes sense to. In that same spirit, though, what I have learned in working with existing structures is you can't make it what it isn't. You have to work with the building to make that code compliant and incorporate into the new development. I am just not sure if the building structurally would accept what we would need to do. And that's at 1,000 feet. I have not dove deeply into that, but knowing from my background and looking at that, I've walked in it a few times. You know, that's really, it's just not too much of a historic content even inside the home, unfortunately, anymore. It's been pretty heavily diced up into small sublets. And I just, even this, I know a big one is like historic staircases because they represent a lot of old craftsmen and millworkings, and it's just, it's not there anymore. So that's kind of what I have. I know it's not great news. Sorry. But we really did think that by removing the home, that house, that structure, as you can see on the layout, it provides good traffic flow. It preserves a lot of forested space, and it keeps us from having to do a ton of earthwork in the back there. All of which are positives for new construction and impact on obviously what other the environmentals and SWIP and so forth. So that's what I got.
Mm-hmm. Keith, what is the drop off, let's say from the east property line to just where it starts to go yellow? Do you know, or Andy?
The elevation difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 20 feet. And it's gorgeous back there. There's some enormous, I think they're oak trees. They're like 36-inch, 42-inch trees, which is why we're showing this big patio in the back, and to be able to preserve that back area for the residents. It's pretty gorgeous back there. So we do like not having to disturb that.
What was the name of the home, by the way? I'm sorry. I thought I heard it mentioned.
Harmony House.
The Harmony House?
Yeah, I think it did. I don't think it had the. I think it was just called Harmony House. I was never able to find out why it was called that and when it got the name. There just isn't enough in the record. There isn't enough that I could find. Valerie, could you just go to that historic photo? I believe that postcard. Harmony Hall, excuse me, Harmony Hall. I did some asking around. I teach at SUNY New Paltz, and I sort of know who the old timers are I could ask. And I did some asking, and that put me on the trail. You know, somebody said that the student union used to be there and some other offices. To the best of his knowledge, the campus never owned it, which is technically true, but it was owned by the auxiliary services, which kind of morphed into, I think, the foundation. So it's got, there is some campus connection there. I definitely appreciate the dilemma you're in. I don't think it's a house without distinction. It's definitely true that the insides have really been chopped up. Yeah, you're right. We wouldn't actually have anything to do with that, Keith. That's just not, our purview is exteriors. I think the other thing that probably is not a positive for the house is that the extension at the rear is later, and I wasn't able to find out when, but I would guess, 50s or 60s.
It's also a little bit tricky to figure out what to do with it, because it's so cut up on the inside, and they don't need, correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, you don't need that kind of space for any of the staff or anything like that. And it's also a pre-existing non-conforming use. These businesses, you couldn't put any businesses in this zone today. So it's supposed to be only residential. So it's a little bit tricky as to kind of what to do with it if we did keep it.
Are you going to need a variance on that grounds?
No, not if senior housing, senior apartments is a permitted use.
Under residential?
Yeah,
Okay. So it's currently non-conforming.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay. That makes sense. Is there, Keith, is there any provision? Is there going to be an on-site manager who might live there as part of his or her employment package?
Yeah, and so that would be built into the model of the structure. It's desired to see that for senior housing, to have that built in and shown. We actually looked at that as well. It's a large building, and so, you know, like I had said before, we had my father and I, who I believe may be on this call, if
I think so, yeah.
not to make things confusing, he also is Keith. And if my grandfather was here, this would be a whole lot of fun, as he's Keith as well. So if he has any comments, Dad, feel free to jump in. But it has size in this image, but like I said, if we were to go into it, post renovation use and zoning for that's not clear. I don't know how that would behave, having the two structures possibly with almost different purposes on one lot. And so, yeah, it, like you said, it's a quagmire. You know, I mean it when I say it. I don't easily want to show up and just demolish this structure. Before we came here, Andy, what did we go through? 4 or 5 different layout sketches trying to see if we located the building near the back, but then we had the grading issues. Then the building turned into an L, and there was issues with that. Then we had traffic flow issue. We've been through some iterations. It's just, it's difficult. And we didn't want to just not show respect by coming here, you know?
No, believe me, we appreciate it. And honestly, everything Andy touches is good as far as HPC is concerned. So I think it's good advice, because I mean, one scenario that I'm sure you can imagine is if you had gone straight to the planning board, you know, eventually the public takes notice and you could have a lot of pushback. And, you know, not least because, what is it, like 4 or 5 neighbors who are used to having, you know, pretty quiet, small scale facility next door will be looking at something very different if it goes through as you've planned. So I think that everything about this is right. So
we do have the benefit of staring at this for several months, and you do not. We began with the idea of keeping the structure and either augmenting, you know, somehow salvaging it. And as the iterations went around, and we looked at the fact that it's pre-existing non-conforming, so the use has to go back to a residential use. Doing the senior housing and the agencies that will get help with in order to make that a reality. You can't just do a light rehab on this. They would want it totally worked over. And that would be extensive. And then it begs the question, is it ADA accessible? It just got into a very long string about how we would actually salvage it. And at the end of the day, we couldn't figure out a meaningful use for it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just with what we're trying to accomplish. I even thought, no, maybe we could subdivide the lot and sell it off, and then it creates a smaller, in order to give it the amount of acreage it needs, we would lose a correspondingly larger amount of senior units and then have to push the building back into the mature trees.
Mhm.
And there's recreational area requirements that are exterior for senior housing, and there's grading requirements that go with that. So I certainly appreciate the board's perspective and respect it.
Well, I think that's mutual. I mean, this is a good use that just presents a real problem. Was any thought given to removing the addition at the rear? Does that in any way present a more usable building? I'm thinking of something like maybe a social center on the first floor that could be, relatively easily made ADA accessible, offices up above that would maybe not have to be. I don't know if the code is that specific.
I don't, I'd have to defer to my father. I don't know did we look into partial demolition?
I did. We looked at first trying to actually attach in some fashion the new building to this building. And the amount of expense versus the benefit it achieved was, it would require a large financial commitment. And when we modeled it, to be honest, I said, I don't know that the juice is worth the squeeze. And what real, part of what drives this is the inside. I don't know if you got to go inside, has been so chopped up and so structurally compromised to go back in and try and put Humpty Dumpty back together and get some clear spans open. I almost wonder if it'd be better to, knock the building down and build something new that looks like it. I was actually kind of sad. There's no content left, which I was just like, and also the use is we were not encouraged to have a commercial use in this building. So that was another layer of difficulty, because I actually thought of, well, maybe we could do something on the first floor and then have secondary uses on the upper floors that would remain commercial.
Okay, no, thank you. Can I ask my colleagues, does anybody have a question or an observation?
I would just say that this building as seen now is less than the sum of its parts. I mean, the previous picture is really quite striking, this front porch and that back addition. And I haven't even seen how it's chopped up inside, but it's most unfortunate. But this for a residential use in the future, this seems to be a very difficult stretch for this building as configured now.
Yeah, I think it would be for senior living. I think there'd be real problems with this building. I think it would have to be administrative space or communal space. Keith, Junior, the third, you had answered my question, but I'm not sure I actually understood the answer. Is there to be an on-site manager living in an apartment in the structure?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the funding sources will want to see that as a requirement built into that.
I mean, I think that that might open up some possibilities, that somebody might appreciate a little bit of spatial separation from his or her workplace. Again, maybe, something where a generous apartment is above and some administrative or social space below, which then potentially opens up that equivalent space in the main structure, and might do something for the bottom line that's positive if you have more units. Are you capped at, is there some limit that I'm not aware of number of units?
Yeah, it's 33 is the max for this acreage.
Okay, and does it differentiate 1 and 2 bedrooms? I mean, could some of them?
I don't believe so. No.
So in the spirit of creative thinking, I mean, maybe one way forward or one thing to think about is a partial demolition that gets the structure down to kind of its historic core, gives you the opportunity at the rear to get some of the ADA access ramps and doorways, and then maybe allows you to get some more 2-bedroom units that would presumably rent for more. I'm not sure that that would be a complete financial trade-off, but it might change the dynamic a little bit or change the equation.
We have a additional residence on the backside of the property on Hasbrook that we were committing for a super or an on-site manager. Currently, that would actually be a manager, would be a
Okay.
super. The manager is a Monday to Friday, and part of the difficulty with doing what you're saying is this. We're hoping that this would actually be an affordable development for seniors, where we could offer some lower rents. We've been working, we just in preliminary discussions with the village about it, where we could maybe offer $1,000, $800 to $1,000 a month rent. And to get that assistance, there's some agency guidelines that have to be followed, and those guidelines would be very strict with what we do with the structure and how we renovate it.
Okay.
So that was, part of the consideration. Really, I really honestly wanted to try and cut it off and repurpose it as a residence. Although the value is kind of mitigated by the fact that there's no way you can easily convert it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From what it was, which is kind of where we, I took a run at it for a couple months, and then we just kind of said, maybe we better talk to the local preservation department.
Well, again, we're really glad you did.
Hi, we're here. We want to demolish this.
Right.
Unfortunately, this may not have
Yeah. Well, we do have a charge. I mean, I think honestly, we're having a productive discussion. It helps us to know what your boundaries are and incentives are. And it's not uncomplicated, right? These aren't private homes. These involve agencies and regulations. I'll make a couple of observations about the site plan that we're seeing. One is, it looks to me like we're adding asphalt at the front with the, one ways, and that may be unavoidable, but probably isn't really in the spirit of what we're trying to do in the village. And then the other thing is that it's not really telling me what 60 by 285 looks like. And I realize, it's early to be doing elevations, but that's a really big structure. And one of the things that we're really trying to advise against, and we're having a lot of this on North Chestnut, is, we don't want to introduce monoliths into the village. And so I wondered, is there some thinking apart from that covered entrance, what would break up that 285 feet? And I don't know if you've gotten that far.
That was actually one of the another reason Andy recommended we come, is to also get some feedback. We are at the point where we would want to start elevations. And so there are things texturally, there are features to break up one structure like this. And so we can, if that is a shared concern, that's something when we come back, we can make sure that is represented with some more visuals. But yes, this is absolutely just two-dimensional top down.
Yeah.
But we would appreciate it as we're here, any thought or request, concern that if we can approach, that would be appreciated.
Sure. I never like to speak for the commission, so please, if anybody else has thoughts on those two things, pro or con, let's hear.
I would think 285 feet is a long stretch as well. I mean, it's going away from Route 32, but it will still be there. So yeah, as a request for your consideration, think about how that might be broken up a little bit, or add some visual interest, or just move the eye around a bit.
Okay.
Sue, Camilla, Pat?
I agree with Stephen and with you, Tom, as well. Maybe if the structure would be composed of smaller units next to each other, kind of offset, perhaps, mimicking perhaps the original structure that might be removed. Just looking more in the spirit of residential housing, smaller residential housing, as opposed to a big structure.
So part of our goal with this particular layout was to have the end of the building be the street face. And so we could actually put a front facade on the end of the building, so that visually from the road, it doesn't look like a large, long structure. We also have considered splitting it up into two smaller structures that have like a garden area connector.
Yeah.
But of course, as you do that, you create larger footprints of disturbance, and kind of wanted to hold off till we met with you. You're actually our first stop, and then get into a design charrette with the planning board as that's required. We're very open and flexible to creativity and how we do this. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Andy, do you have a photograph of the original front porch? Do you, as a reference?
Do I have a, no, I don't, no.
I suspect that the only one that anybody's going to get, Keith, is that's the only image I've ever found of it.
Of the front porch, okay.
What's interesting though, if you, Val, could you scroll back to the present, the vestiges of those wonderful rafter ends are still there. So it really just got, sided in, but nothing was done with the crown. Keith Sr., I think that's an important aspect of what we're looking at, that, the narrow end is street facing. There's a lot of potential to be thinking about what's in that neighborhood. And it is really transitional, but the Seakill project to the south, I think I'm going to guess that pitch is about, it might even be a 10-12 pitch. But, look at that, look at what's going on just north of it. That's kind of the local idiom. What's across the street is a whole other thing, but, definitely has I think it has its architectural integrity. So that'll be an interesting challenge. And I think with Camilla and Steve and Sue, maybe exploring two structures or a very deep entryway that almost seems to separate them. I'm also thinking, as somebody who I guess qualifies as senior, I'm not sure I want to live in a big rectangle. I think I would rather have the illusion that I'm in a cottage in a community of cottages or something that approaches maybe a smaller scale. I don't know, you have more experience building for this population, but that's just a hunch that something that looks too close to a hospital or to a dormitory isn't going to be as attractive.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And one of the, yeah, I mean, right now, one of the risks of just kind of drawing a rectangle on the plan, you know, it's really a placeholder for us, knowing that we need that much space. You know, the building is not going to be, I would imagine, you know, this plain box. There's going to be some architectural detail. We just don't know what that is yet. So I would say don't get too into the rectangle idea. I think it's going to have some features, I would imagine, right, Keith?
Oh, no, absolutely. I think, no offense to you, Andy, but yes, that two-dimensional box does us a disservice.
I mean, I think we honestly know that it takes a lot to do elevations. There has to be a lot of creative work, and you're obviously putting things in the right order. But you know, you came asking for thoughts, and I think all four of us are saying, you know, the big rectangle doesn't look like anything we could endorse. The other thing that we have really tried to do with recent projects is to keep people thinking about quality materials. And, you know, that obviously is a cost in some cases, but it doesn't have to be a huge cost. So, you know, if we were to lose this building, we're losing a clapboard and cedar faced building. I don't think we would be happy to see something industrial come up in its place. Zero Place is kind of an interesting case study that went through a lot of iterations, and the first ones were frankly just generic and horrible. I mean, I think even the architect and owners would agree that the first iterations just made no sense locally. And so, you know, thinking about what you're seeing in New Paltz would certainly help. Maybe some of the indicators can come from across the street. That's an interesting building with the siding. I was going to say too, Val, could we please go back to the site plan for a second?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I do appreciate, and I think my colleagues do too, and it sounds like you do, is, you know, leaving that woods to the back is a positive. I think residents would appreciate that. I think that's in the spirit of, you know, sensible development. It looks like there is a little room to push backwards if something has to happen, or if there's a way to preserve the original house.
Tom, when you were talking about the pavement in the front, you were referring, the other issue you were talking about was just not having parking in the front. Is that what you were?
Well, I mean, yeah, kind of the spirit of recent development has been to try to make things as pedestrian friendly as possible, parking in the rear. So what's going on in the NBR might give you a set of cues. Stewart's is kind of an exception, and we knew that, you know, just because it's a filling station, it doesn't quite conform to that new idea of street facing buildings, but it, you know, largely does. I mean, definitely departs from what Stewart's usually does. So again, Zero Place might give some clues. But no, I just meant, you know, in place of one driveway, now we're going to have two. That's more asphalt. I do see some garden and planting, so that helps.
Yeah, it's actually a requirement. It seems like a lot for a little development, but it's in the code. They have to have 2 access points to the road, which we're going to try to get waived. But that's why you're seeing that we're trying to meet the code. So.
Is that specific to senior living or?
Yeah.
All? Okay. I mean, I actually do kind of see the logic of that. It must be for emergency services.
Yeah. I mean, something like Woodland Pond, it makes sense because there's just so many units, but 30 units seems like kind of a lot in my opinion, but
Is it strictly apartments, or is there any kind of clinic or common space intended?
Yes,
common
it's
and gathering
strictly
space, yes.
apartments.
Yep. Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, it's apartments with some common and community space and recreational amenities. And that will be the sum of it.
Okay, so no on-site clinic or nurse's station or,
There'll be space available, but it won't be dedicated to one particular person. It's just a medical space that's available. And what we find is it would be if someone is ill or needs like a visiting nurse, it would be a station for them. Someone could be in that particular space if you had to have a vaccine. So people wouldn't have to come to your residence. You could just walk downstairs and there would be a doctor there or someone to administer that in that space.
okay. So like flu shots or?
Yeah.
Okay. Colleagues, does anybody have questions or further comments? Let's try to summarize then. I want to be transparent about what we'll do. So we're advisory to the planning board, and obviously prior to your first visit. What we would like to do is kind of send a report or summary of tonight's discussion forward. And I want to try to pull that together in your presence so that there aren't any surprises. I'm just going to share a couple of thoughts, and colleagues, stop me if this doesn't represent your view. I would say at the outset that I encourage a project like this. I think it's a community benefit. Is there anybody who disagrees or wants to say more about that? Okay. Secondly, I think that most of us seem to be expressing some satisfaction with the wooded area to the east. Any objections there? You can tell I'm very quickly taking notes so that I remember all this. I think there was some concern that we don't want a monolithic rectangle, and it sounds like the developers don't either, but is there any objection to wording to that effect?
No.
Okay. I'll put that down as encourage creative variation of space, something to that effect. I'll just say I'm still ambivalent about the house. I would love to hear that after this meeting, a light bulb goes off for you and there's some way that you could incorporate the house, put a breezeway to the main structure, or figure out a way to keep it. I totally admit that it doesn't rise to the level that some structures in the community do, where there'd be, I think, an easier decision, but it's also not a completely lost exterior. And so I'd like to record some ambivalence about that on the part of the commission, but I want to make sure to get that right if there's any disagreement over that.
Oh, you got it.
Mhm.
And that we're both recognizing that it doesn't really rise to the level of landmarking, but it also isn't a building that we'd happily see go. Fifth, there was quite a lot of talk at the end about a thoughtful facade facing Route 32, that's really kind of visually important. Any issues there? Okay. Keith Senior, go ahead.
Would you be willing to share with us that image of the house with the porch on it?
Absolutely. Oh, share it by email?
Yeah,
Yes.
that'd be great.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and anything, we can also share the document, the tax document or the transfer document, just so you have it.
I have those all in one document, the current photo, the older photo, and the deed or whatever, that document you dug out, Tom. I can send them all together.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, Andy, I'll send it to you if you don't mind sharing it then.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Colleagues, have I missed anything that should be noted?
I don't think so.
I wonder if, Andy, could it possibly help your cause if we expressed some concern about additional asphalt with that two-way driveway?
Yeah, I think so. I think that could help us.
Does that express the commission? I don't want to push my observation over others.
Oh, that makes sense, Tom. My question would be, when you're talking about the thoughtful facade facing Route 32, are you talking about the usage of the building materials? Whether it's clapboard or is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and design.
Okay.
Yeah, it is both. And I also wanted to add that, I'd like to record that we would like to see quality materials, and that usually means natural materials. So let's be thinking in terms of clapboard. There's some pretty good cement products that wear quite well and look like clapboard until you're 3 feet away. Keith, I'm sure you know all about those.
Yep.
Cedar's a pretty darn good product too. The other thing I'd like to record is that I think this is a really productive kind of conversation. I mean, I'm finding you all really cooperative and open about what your, sort of financial position is and what is put on you by regulation. And I would like to note that if my colleagues are okay with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is kind of what should always happen, and it sometimes doesn't, and that usually ends up with frustration.
Right.
Tom, the only thing I would add to the entrance situation is it works in some ways on the loop road, and that you can drop off right at the entrance and not have to turn around. So there are and fire access and ambulance. So there are some benefits to this loop kind of situation. So I just wanted to add that.
To that point too, just real quick. I mean, we can also still, I think, Andy, approach the concern. It's not a huge change, but we could, you could see the footprint of the existing building. I think we could sneak in another 2 parking spots and move that tree to the back of our building, so that we're where we're putting an area of disturbance right now, there's a building, and just another way to approach that concern and just show, I think we could, it's not a great change, but it's something.
Does anyone know, back to the driveway for a second, what is the required width of a one-way entrance or exit?
Call you, Andy.
I know that there is, you're probably going to be into a fire apparatus road because of the amount of units. That's 20 foot is a requirement for a fire apparatus road. So I think
for each direction, or sorry, each.
I think both of them, you're going to have 20 foot due to the International Fire Code.
And so that would imply that if it shrunk to, if there were only one entrance, would it have to be 40?
No, it would be 20. I think that, no, so if it was one, it would be 20.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that maybe is something that should be noted. I mean, that's 40 feet of, in the current design, it's 40 feet of asphalt frontage that maybe could be shrunk to 20 and still be within regs. I think I'd probably like to keep it in as a question unless anybody objects. I don't think it can hurt you.
I agree.
What is the frontage about 250, Andy? I know I knew this at one point.
1 second. This is actually only showing about 160 because
Okay.
the parcel is more like 250, but that little kind of
That
notch
notch.
out of there.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways that makes the case even more strongly. So under the current design, a quarter of the frontage is asphalt. Be nice if that could be thought of, but obviously it's really early days on details like this.
Yeah.
Colleagues, is there anything else?
I would suppose we would be coming back here at some point, wouldn't we?
You're always welcome to, we would welcome that.
Sure.
I was just going to ask, are you on the planning board agenda yet? Or do you know?
Nope. No, we just wanted to stop here first and have a discussion. And I assumed we'd go to the planning board and hear their thoughts and then try to come up with a collaborative blend between your desires, the code requirements, and their desires, and then we move forward.
I think that sounds great. We only need about 2 weeks' notice to get you on the agenda. So, you know, maybe the best thing is just please be in touch. We usually get notices when something is going to pre-application or is on the planning board agenda. So we'd be tipped off, but please let us know at any point if we can help. You know, I do think the project has merits, real benefits to the community, and that'll be high up in this report.
Okay.
Very good. Thanks, everybody. I will make sure that you get a copy of this. We don't hide anything. So it's at this point, I have 8 items, and I'll just have to, you know, craft the wording, but I've got my list of points.
So thank you. This was exactly what we were looking for, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah,
You're very welcome.
We're crossing our fingers that before long we can actually sit around a table. It's so inefficient to do this on Zoom, but thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thanks a lot.
Night.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening. So everybody, I will put that together, and before I send it out, I'll circulate it so that we can critique it and make sure it's exactly what we want to say. Okay, it's kind of an important document. Is there anything we wanted to say before we go on to the next agenda item?
If I may say something, I guess I'm not an architect, but probably one of the greatest things about being an architect is that you can come up with all kinds of creative solutions in difficult situations. And maybe this is one of those instances where it might require a bit more thinking.
Yeah. I mean, that is what architects do, right?
Yeah. And we may not necessarily want to make things more difficult for them, obviously, but we shouldn't cave in either if the first time or the second time the plan doesn't work out the way it's most acceptable for the other party.
Right.
I don't know. I just feel really sad about losing that building. I mean, this is what happens so many times, that a building that has so much character and contributes to the streetscape is being erased.
Yeah.
Even though I really appreciate the senior living facility, that's something that we desperately need.
I think we all agree it's a good use. It's a noble use. I agree, Camilla. I mean, and I'm not sure that they wouldn't come back with
Yeah.
a more creative solution.
Sure, I had the feeling that they are sensitive to this issue, and I'm sure they have been thinking about it.
Yeah. No, these are,
Yeah.
you know, very good clients. I mean, I think this is what the community should always do.
And I think now that we have more information about the difficulties that they face, maybe, our thinking would change as well, or my thinking rather. And, sometimes we have to accept that something cannot be kept.
Right. Well, we'll see where things shake out. I mean, I feel like there might be the house that they have earmarked for the super could be sold. It's a separate lot. There may be a way to make the super's house the brown house. I think especially giving some thought to pulling off the extension, so you shrink the house, you gain garden space, you make the possibility for ADA access. And I could imagine seniors really appreciating a separate older building that maybe was like a community center or, a multi-purpose room. Okay. I will circulate that. It's probably going to be the end of this week or this weekend before I can realistically get to it, but I'll try to be snappy with it. Sue, let's go to item 4, if we could. Updates for Huguenot Street.
Oh,
First one belongs to you.
yes. Yes, I have to, or I'm finally biting the bullet and replacing my roof. And it's going to be it's going to be like for like. It's not essentially. It is. The only thing is that the roofing material is going to be a little better quality. And that's the middle panel is the closest to what is already existing up there.
I believe that's the very one we have on our garage, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we're really just noting that it's clearly like for like. And when did the work start, Sue?
They're supposed to start May 13th, possibly.
Great. We will look forward to seeing it.
It's actually more.
So do you need me to send anything? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you need me to send anything to the building department, or you're all already in communication?
I'm in communication. I don't think there's a problem. Yeah, it's more for the soffit and the fascia that I just continually do a patch job on. And that's the biggest issue. The roof itself is not such an issue, but the fascia.
Got it. Well, good luck with it.
Thank you.
And let's see, if they're starting May 13th, we actually can hear about it. It might be ongoing for the next meeting, which I think is May 17th. Let's see, back to the agenda then, Sue. 168 Huguenot Street.
That's Dana's.
Yeah, I probably know more about this, Sue, than you do. Dana got back in touch with a decision that actually really helps, because you remember the one thing holding us up on that was the asymmetry. She's decided to do both windows equal height.
Oh, good.
So we just said that's an amendment to the already approved. And then Camilla, not only 196 Huguenot Street, but you might as well talk about 144 Main Street as well, if you would.
So 196 Huguenot Street, Meredith, Blake and Ari, her husband, they would like to repaint the house. And based on their preferences, I put together 2 different color schemes for them. The house hasn't been painted yet, so I'm not sure what they decided really, but I sent Tom and Val all the details about the paint colors that I have chosen, and they seem to like it, like both options. They prefer the siding to be a kind of slate blue color, either Hamilton blue or Buckland blue from the Benjamin Moore collection. I don't know if you can see them. It's
Actually.
Yeah.
Both
This
are.
one is Hamilton blue. This is a bit darker, more grayish blue, and this is a bit more vibrant color. Oops, sorry. I don't know how. And so based on these initial choices that they made, I suggested some colors for the trim and door and the shutters. I don't know if do you need to get all the details now, or if we can just forward the message to everyone with all the paint color information, that you can look it up and then see what it's all about. I was wondering if we would be able to purchase fan bags from Benjamin Moore. It might be much easier if we had all the colors than going to, the store every time somebody's asking about colors.
What is it called?
It's a fan bag.
Oh, fan. Yeah, yeah.
I think they have one specifically for historic colors, and also for different paint collections.
Do you know how much they are?
It's about $20 each.
Is there a motion to approve that expense? It sounds like a great idea.
Maybe it could be like one for the historic collection and one for most popular colors.
Sure.
Would that be?
I think that that's a great idea. How long do fans last? How often does a manufacturer change colors?
I'm not quite sure. I don't know.
Okay.
But
if it helps you, you're doing such wonderful work for a number of people. I would say that's a great expense.
It would be more helpful to me, or easier at least.
Yeah.
It would save me a few trips for sure.
Let's do that. Did I see it moved by Steve? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Seconded by Sue. All in favor?
I will defer my vote because.
Well.
Is it okay?
Okay, but it passed anyway. And then, Camilla, do you want to report on the development on 144 Main Street? That's quite new.
Well, yes, it's the New Paltz Commons project, right? That's
Yes.
And it seems there is a new owner, the Kempner Corporation, and they would like to repaint the siding of the building. I imagine that they would like to leave the brick as it is, right, Tom?
I believe so. I didn't hear any discussion.
I had a message from Peter, so I will continue our conversation with him and ask about this. So I will put together some color schemes for their project as well. It seems they are leaning towards more greens for the siding. And
That
well,
sounds great.
green is my favorite color, so I kind of ran away with the idea and already chose a few options, which might be a bit too bright for some people's tastes. So maybe Tom, would it be possible to set up a meeting with Peter?
Sure.
Is he local? I don't know.
I think he's from White Plains, but
Oh.
he and his brother, I think, own the plaza. So I'm sure they're up here pretty often.
Okay.
Um,
But anyway, I will definitely talk to you. Maybe we can go together and I will show you my selections and the reasoning behind my choices. I haven't collected all the paint samples yet, so I will need a few more days for that.
that's fine. I mean,
But this is a new inquiry.
yeah, it just came, although it's not the most recent one actually, but it's also a really nice example. It was at Tim Rogers' suggestion that they come to us. So Tim is clearly, acting on this principle that we should be involved in these things. And colors aren't mandated, but Camilla's really good with them. And I think people have been appreciative of the free advice.
I don't know, maybe we think I'm good, but
I mean, people always have the right to refuse, so I think they are happy.
Exactly, they have an escape clause if
Right.
yes.
Nobody's impressing anything on them. Val, I just wanted to note, Pat voted in the affirmative also for that expense. So
Okay,
it's
thank you.
unanimous.
How shall we proceed with that? I'm sorry, Camilla, do you want to send me information to place an order, or do you want to purchase it and we'll reimburse you?
We can talk about that. I'm not sure what would be the best way. I can buy them if that's easier. I don't.
I'll touch base with Nancy and see what she recommends.
Okay. Okay. And I just would like to ask you all, since the building is red right now, do you like it? I mean, I think it makes the complex feel kind of cozy and
It's interesting. I live more or less across from it, and I kind of never notice it. There never seems to be any noise or trouble from it.
yeah.
And the red kind of recedes.
Yes, exactly. I would hate it to become some kind of, gray and dull looking complex, right?
When I lived on Prospect and cut over to the campus, I would go through there a lot. I think the red is very nice, and yeah, I think something along those lines would be great.
Yeah. Even with the greens, I mean, I found some really nice ones that would complement the brick as well, and but we can suggest them to keep the red.
Yeah. As new owners, they may have a kind of incentive to, put a new coat of paint on it, so to speak. And of course, we'd respect that. But Camille, I'll be glad to do that. Maybe the first step would be to think about, I don't know, like 5 or 10 combinations, just to start wide and then narrow it.
Okay. Sounds good.
I also don't really know if they truly want to sit down and have a long conversation, or more or less just want to be told what to do. I mean, I just don't know.
Yes, Peter only asked to keep the number of colors no more than 2.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that was our thinking as well. Just the one color for the siding and one color for the trim, or the light colored vertical line that goes where the windows are. So
That sounds good. There's one other thing from Huguenot Street, which is a very late entrance, but Ann Quinn got in touch just this afternoon. She really just wants to do a like for like and went ahead and filled out an application, but I don't, they're essentially the same colors, so I'm inclined to just say boom. Sue, she had approached you first. Did you understand anything different from what I did?
No, no. She says it's light sand color. I would have called it almost a pale yellow, which is kind of what she has. I mean, I saw the sample that she said she was going to use, and almost a light blue shutter. The painter that she's using is using the historical colors from Benjamin Moore. That's where they came from. And I told her that even though it was very similar, she really needed to be talking with us.
Yeah. And I think that's the process. But, once she does that, we certainly wouldn't stand in the way if it was a slight variation within.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve that? I'm not even sure it really is a COA so much as
Yeah, if it's like for like, we don't really need one.
right. So
It's just
is there
yeah.
a motion to note this as a like for like repainting?
I can motion that it's for like replacement.
Seconded by Camilla and unanimous. We'll see if Pat agrees. So Val, that passes. Can you get back? I could do that, Val. You've got plenty of things to do.
Thanks.
I'll write to Ann and copy you, and that's done.
Okay, thank you.
Items 5 and 6, everyone. Chris is not able to attend this meeting, so no updates on the African American burial ground plantings. Also, with respect to the historic marker in Riften, I tried my absolute best. I went out cycling to exactly where I thought that was. Couldn't find it, nor could my riding buddy. So I just need to get back to Chris and find out what he meant, because we couldn't find it.
I drove that stretch myself yesterday and looked for it, and no success.
I wonder if Bigfoot took it. Item 7, potential consultation may be coming our way. Maybe something further on 5 Plattekill. The Lalo group now has resubmitted a site plan, so we should expect to be in touch there. And actually, I'm going to write to the planning board just to make sure they know we're available.
I believe they're on the agenda for tomorrow night. Is that correct?
I believe that's what I saw as well. We actually had an informal consultation some while ago, so I'll mention that. Item 8 is pretty self-explanatory. The annual report was submitted on the 19th. We haven't heard anything back, so it's probably fine.
Yeah, just an acknowledgement, nothing else, but that's pretty typical.
Yep. Val, I did not get an updated budget report. The last I have is the same numbers that are in the minutes.
Neither did I, and I did not think to touch base with Carol earlier. I'm sorry.
It's not a worry. Last month, everyone, we'd expended about 52% of the budget in 75% of the year. We've expended a little bit for the camp training, which we'll get to in just a second, but we're still going to come in well within budget. Item 10 is just a reminder that the harassment and discrimination training has to be done. That link will take you to a date in May. when you can do it. Steve, Sue, you might be getting this in your workplace, in which case that same certificate can be used for the village.
I'm actually getting it. I took the session last week and will be using it in my place of employment. So this has been very, very helpful for me to get. The class was fine. There was a little confusion on all 500 people's part about when it started. I had it starting at 8:30 in the morning, and then they came on and said it's 8:45, and then at 9 o'clock people were saying, isn't this at 9 o'clock? So if you do sign up in the future, just double check your times.
Okay. That sounds great. Item 11 is term expirations. Pat would like to become an alternate member. She'd like to step down at the end of her term in May, at the end of May, but retain a place as an alternate. I'm absolutely in favor of that. I think it would be a shame to lose Pat's expertise. And so I would ask if anyone would like to make a motion that we accept that, I guess, proposal application from Pat.
I would move to accept that, and would also move that you be chair, sir.
Well, I'm happy to.
I'm uncertain if this needs to be part of a public meeting or if it's executive session. And if it's executive session, I don't know how to do that when we're doing YouTube.
Yeah, geez, I honestly don't know either. I was going to offer to leave the room for a minute, but that doesn't really take care of Zoom. Is there a way to turn off Zoom prior to, I'm sorry, to turn off YouTube prior to turning off Zoom?
Yes, but I guess we could do that. We just go through the rest of the agenda and
Yeah,
come back to this.
That's what I'm thinking we do. I'm also thinking that it's approaching 9 o'clock and there's not that much more agenda we can take. Let's do that if we could, please. We'll make that the last item, which is just in a minute or two.
And you did want to mention the camp training, right?
Yes, please. So Val, actually, you're closer to how that registration ended up. Could you please report?
I hope everyone got a confirmation and a link. Can you tell me whether you did or not?
I did, yes.
I did.
Okay, because what happened is I was able to register all of us, all 7 of us, to take part in this. And the link is really all you need. It's available until I think it was June 7th on demand. And I believe part of the information that was forwarded to us includes a list of all the various sessions, so you can pick and choose as you wish.
Right. And I think something that could really help us is as people, just jump in and find a session. If you find something that seems particularly relevant to our situation, maybe just email everybody to let them know. Because clearly some of those sessions are going to be unrelated to what we do, or they're just not going to be situationally appropriate. But it might save us poking around if you find something that looks really good and should be shared.
Tom and I just kind of made an executive decision about registering everybody, mostly because it's available for such a long period of time, and figured it was just going to be easy enough for everyone to do it as their time allowed.
Yep.
Or not.
Or not, but we have the budget, and as training goes, this seems like a really efficient way to brush up. The only other thing that is not in executive session then is I wanted just to update you on where things are with code revisions and all of that initiative. I think tonight was actually a really useful example of a pretty large scale project where we seem to have some intuitive sense that 285 feet times 60 is a lot of mass. But at this point, we don't really have standards that we can point to, standards that an architect would be able to learn in advance. So one of the things I was thinking in the next next week's, maybe in time for the May meeting, is to do a little brainstorming about what we would like to see as kind of basic expectations for new construction, things like quality materials, things like avoiding monolithic construction, things like paying attention to roof pitches. And we can just kind of get that down so that we can actually sort of move forward with what those design standards would be. There's going to be obviously a lot of checking with the planning board and the building department to make sure that we're not insisting on things that are impossible. But I think that's something that we should aim to do for next month, if that seems okay. Okay, is that good all around? The other thing that I thought we could determine tonight, design review board, does that feel like a comfortable name for everyone? My own thinking, the other alternative seems to be architectural review, which to me sounds a little scarier maybe to lay people. Design seems a little more encompassing and a little less specific. So I guess I lean toward that.
I think design is fine. Architectural review board, I mean, I think design is a little perhaps lowercase d democratic in its how it sounds. So I think that this will be something new in the community, and probably something that is less of a worrisome word would probably lead to greater success.
You said that so nicely, Steve. That's exactly what I meant. I think it's just a little less highfalutin to say design. Yeah. Camilla, is that fine with you as well?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, good. So let's make those, let's make design standards top of the agenda for May. I'd really like to push that forward this summer and try to get something in place. Can anybody, does anybody have any other business before we go into executive session? Okay. So how about a motion to go into executive session, which realistically means that we're going to stop the YouTube broadcast. We won't go back to it, but the minutes will record that we came out of executive session and closed the meeting.
Okay, give me a minute to do this.
Okay. Actually, I think we need a vote. We need a motion.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
I move that we go to executive session to discuss personnel issues.
Thank you. Seconded by Camilla. All those in favor? Okay. And Pat, if you want to weigh in on whether you're good with executive session.
Is Pat listening in on YouTube?
Oh, yes.
That could present her a problem.
She's not using the chat. So can she?
She's been texting me.
I don't know. I guess she can't be on speakerphone unless she's on one of ours. But
Pat says yes to executive session.
all right.
Well, Pat would be leaving for discussion of her term. We could still vote.
Maybe she can send me a text about your chair term.
Okay. Yeah, Pat, if you're still listening, and I hope you are, I am willing to stand for another term as chair, but I'm going to be leaving the call while you discuss that. Pat, if you could just send your vote to Val when that time comes.
All right. Am I okay to stop the